Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to log in and get settled into the webinar, so we'll begin shortly. Everyone for joining. We're just giving everyone a few more minutes to join, but we'll get started shortly. If you're here for the third community workshop for the City of Santa Clara's Vision Zero workshop, you're in the right place. We're so glad you could join us this evening, and we'll get started in just a moment. Go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. Thank you everyone so much for attending. Just a few notes before we dive into the content for this evening's workshop. This meeting is being recorded, so you should have heard that notice from Zoom when you joined. If you are not able to stay the whole time, don't worry, this will be posted to the website later along with the summary. And if you would like to take a look at the project website, that is available by scanning the QR code on the screen that you see. You can also connect with us via voicemail or email if you have any questions or comments that you're not able to make during tonight's presentation. And so there's a few communication methods available to you as we go through this evening, and we'll have this information presented later in the presentation as well. So don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Next slide. A few instructions on how to use Zoom and how this workshop will work this evening. You can change your name if you would like by hovering over the participants tab and rename yourself. If you would like to share your first name and last initial, that would be great. Next slide. We will have questions. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A that you'll see at the bottom of the screen anytime throughout tonight's presentation. We will be answering them in one batch at the end. But don't hesitate if you have a question during the presentation to drop that in the Q&A, and then we'll make sure that it's queued up for when we get to that portion of tonight's workshop. During the Q&A, if you would prefer to ask your question out loud and off mute, just raise your hand, and so we can go to the next slide. And you'll see the raise hand function down at the bottom of your screen as well. If you're dialing in with us, you can press *9, and that way the host will be able to unmute you so you can come off mute and ask your question out loud. You're welcome to use either method, either the Q&A or ask via hand raise, so we will get to all questions this evening, and we're here to answer anything you may have. Next slide. All right, so now I'm going to pass it to Nicole, project manager with the Public Works Department of the City of Santa Clara, to introduce the project team and go over this evening's agenda. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Regina. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole He, and I work at the traffic engineering team at the city, leading this Vision Zero project. And I would say this is a very important project for the city to improve traffic safety citywide. And thank you again for being here with us tonight. Also online with me, I have our senior civil engineer, Ralph Garcia, and our Cham Station Manager, Steve Chan, with us to answer any questions at the end. I'm also supported by Carol Shariat, Principal Planner, and Mike Liu, our Assistant Director of the Public Works Department. So I really look forward to hearing your feedback tonight and address any questions you may have. I will pass it over to our project consultant, Robert Perderna at Kimley Horn.
All right, thanks, Nicole, and good evening, everyone. Really happy to be here this evening. As Nicole mentioned, my name is Robert Paderna, and I'm with Tinley Horn. supported here with or by Mike Colte, also with Kinley Horn, and Regina Merrill, who you met as at the top of the meeting, and she'll be facilitating our meeting this evening. So just a brief rundown of what we plan on presenting this evening. So we're going to provide a brief overview of Vision Zero and what the goals and objectives are. I'll present the project timeline. We'll also spend some time presenting a quick summary of the recently conducted community survey. And then we're going to really focus on project development and the implementation plan, which will be a critical element of the Vision Zero plan. And then we'll end with upcoming activities and entertain any questions that you may have. So for those who may not have had the opportunity to join us in our previous community workshops and pop-up events, I wanted to provide a brief overview of Vision Zero. So it's really a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries on the city's roadways, and by doing that, really promoting a safe, healthy, and equitable transportation network for all users, and that not only includes drivers, but certainly pedestrians and cyclists and users of all modes. Vision Zero represents a framework and really a strong commitment to making Santa Clara streets safer for all road users. The goal of this project is to develop a framework. It's a planning effort to develop a framework for roadway improvements, new and updated programs and policies to promote an enhancement of roadway safety on the city's roadways. And also, what's unique about this plan is that it also provides opportunities to integrate education and outreach campaigns to continue promoting Vision Zero and the city's initiative in educating community members, stakeholders on safe practices from a road user perspective. The project timeline encompasses roughly 1.5 years in totality. A lot of the early focus was on public engagement, information gathering, and the collision data analysis that's been conducted. In addition to that, development of safety countermeasures in developing the countermeasure toolbox in response to identified safety challenges on the city's roadways. We're currently finalizing the implementation plan as shown on the project timeline graphic. And that's with a focus on projects along the Hindrey network, which we'll delve into a little bit later on in the presentation. And using that to develop an approach to guide the city in implementing safety improvements over the near term and also with the long-term view. The plan also presents a set of action-oriented and multidisciplinary strategies that encompass not only engineering solutions, but enforcement initiatives, education, and outreach campaigns. So with an eye towards the project completion, we plan on delivering the draft Vision Zero plan later in the summer of this year, and the project completion towards the end of the year. So speaking to some of the community engagement activities, we've conducted 2 community workshops in our series of community workshops that are planned over the course of the project. So back in November, we had conducted our first workshop, which is really to provide an introduction to the project and to Vision Zero, and solicit comments on general safety concerns. That was conducted in parallel with our first round of with the first online survey. In March, so just a few months ago, we had held an in-person community workshop at City Hall, and that was focused on the collision data analysis and presenting the preliminary results, the Hindrey network, and presentation of the countermeasure toolbox, which is a menu of proven safety countermeasures that were identified and developed for inclusion in the Vision Zero plan. Where we are today is really focusing in on the Vision Zero projects, programs, and policies, which again, we're going to be spending a lot of time in discussing later on in the presentation. And tentatively planned for late June, we are going to regroup and host a workshop that's focused on the priority projects and specific improvements that have been identified in preparation of the draft Vision Zero plan. Continuing on some of the community engagement activities. So we've had the opportunity to attend various in-person events to solicit feedback on safety challenges. And there's some photos on the slide here that presents the events that we attended: the Art and Wine Festival, Farmers Market, the holiday tree lighting, which was a huge success, as was the recent Earth Day event. And again, there's photos from those events. You may have seen the project information cards or the pomp cards that were handed out at those events. As part of this project, there was also installation of project signage throughout the city. So hopefully you've driven through or walked or biked along corridors and have seen those signs installed. We've established an email list for project information and announcements related to the Vision Zero project. Developed a project website, which will make sure you have the QR code we'll share at the end of the presentation so that you can access that and continually, check in as various activities and information are posted on the project website. There's also a city newsletter that hopefully you're on the email distribution list for that, and follow the city's social media channels. That's also a great avenue or great avenues to keep up to date on all the happenings related to the Vision Zero project and other safety initiatives. Bus shelter advertisements. If you've driven along El Camino Real over the past few months, you may have seen the branded Vision Zero posters that were posted at the bus shelters. And last but not least, the online surveys that have been conducted. Two in fact have been conducted. And with that, I wanted to provide a brief summary of what we learned and gathered from the recently conducted community survey. So the survey launched in February, mid-February, and closed on April 7th. So it was open for a total of 7 weeks, and this was the second survey that was conducted using that online forum. The survey aimed to assess perceptions of traffic-related injuries on the city's high energy network and get feedback on potential safety improvements. The survey got a lot of good feedback on the survey. We got 729 responses from 621 unique contributors. And the feedback that we received include concerns related to specific segments on the draft high energy network. The data also provided good information on near misses and location-specific safety concerns that don't always result in collisions. And that's really important and impactful as we really couple the anecdotal information and feedback that we received with the analytical data or the collision history data that we gather from police reports to really paint a more complete picture on some of the safety concerns on the city's roadways. So with the recently completed survey, wanted to share a few highlights here. So the top ranked suggestions for improving safety across these high energy network segments include increased traffic enforcement. That's geared towards discouraging red light running, speed enforcement, including locations near schools such as Wilcox High and other schools that were commented on, and as well as the residential streets where there's a higher pedestrian and bicycle activity, or higher levels of pedestrian and bicycle activity. The second, in terms of the ranking of feedback that we received, included implementation of traffic calming measures, such as speed bumps or speed humps, and roundabouts, also for speed management. And third, improved signage and road markings. So these countermeasures present opportunities for advanced warning signs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons to supplement pedestrian crossing signs, and more pedestrian and bicycle focused wayfinding signs near trail access points. Again, in total, we received 729 responses, also providing information on demographics, travel modes and patterns, safety challenges, and perspectives on safety improvements and Vision Zero initiatives. Key findings from the survey included, as shown on the slide, 80% of the respondents expressed that it's very important to prioritize project locations that are close to key destinations, including schools, access to transit, parks, community centers, and open space. 93% of respondents expressed that engineering, and that includes roadway design measures, traffic calming, would be most effective at eliminating fatalities and severe injuries. It's important to acknowledge, I mentioned engineering. Engineering is just one part of the puzzle, if you will. What's shown on the right is the traffic safety or the safety ease, and that includes engineering, enforcement, and that's enforcement of traffic laws to promote safe driving behavior among all road users. Education is certainly critical to inform and influence safe practices among all road users, and understand also it's also an avenue to share information to understand the consequences of unsafe behavior. And last but not least, emergency services. Safe and quick response post-collision to increase survivability rates is paramount. So all four of the safety E's play a pivotal role in improving traffic safety. Also received information on travel modes from the respondents of the survey. So they were asked to describe their transportation modes when traveling in Santa Clara. So and respondents weren't limited to just picking one. So all that any mode that they use on a regular basis, and most respondents regularly drove in single occupant vehicles. A large proportion, as shown, also walk, so 65%, and 42% regularly use bike or e-bikes or other rideable devices. While we understand that this is just a small sampling of survey respondents, it's important to understand the general mode split of road users, in that risk exposure for pedestrians and cyclists are generally higher, typically resulting in more severe injuries in the event of collisions. And this information is also helpful to inform mode-specific infrastructure and safety countermeasures that are going to be identified and implemented as an outcome of the plan. It also helps with designing and curating educational campaigns that are tailored towards specific user groups. And that'll be discussed more later as we dive into the potential implementable actions and strategies to really bring more awareness to Vision Zero initiatives. All right. Last item as it relates to the online survey. So the majority of the feedback on the survey were in the southern section of the high energy network. So upwards of 60% of the respondents voted for improvements along the southern segments. It's important to note too that the southern section has the highest population group, but just thought it'd be worth sharing that. As shown on the right-hand side of the slide there, those are the top 6 segments for traffic-related injuries or near misses that were commented on the survey. And the two atop are sections of El Camino Real from Lafayette to the city limits, and from San Tomas to Lafayette, Lafayette Street, Homestead, Lawrence Expressway on the south, and San Tomas Expressway from US 101 to Central on the north. All right, moving on to project development and implementation. So this is really building off of the collision data analysis that was conducted and the community feedback based on not only the online survey, but the various touch points with community members. We're at a stage in the project where we have identified focus areas for projects and a draft implementation plan to guide how the city can implement infrastructure improvements and also new and updated programs and policies. So what's shown on the slide here is the Hindree Network map. It's a citywide map, and the Hindree Network identifies intersections and roadways which experience the disproportionate number of injury, collisions, and fatalities. Approximately 60% of all collisions occurred on 16% of the road network. That does include county expressways and El Camino Real, which is maintained by the state. So in development of the Hindree network, we use a data-driven approach, and that's using collision data that was collected and analyzed between the years of 2016 to 2023. So an 8-year data set in totality. All right, of the Hindree network, which the same Hindree network map is shown on the right, we identified a subset of corridors that were atop the list based on collision density and injury severity. And that's what's shown with the colored overlays on the map. The different colors represent who owns the roadways, who owns and maintains the roadways. So just note that the yellow are the city roadways. The orange reflects the expressway, and the magenta reflects the segment of El Camino Real that's state maintained. Note that some of these corridors, I know it's a little difficult to see at this scale, but some of these corridors are nearby schools, or have nearby schools, such as Wilcox High along Monroe, Scott Lane Elementary along Scott, and Santa Clara High along El Camino Real. So these locations represent where priority high-energy network corridor projects could be developed and included in the plan. The projects would be developed along these roadways, prioritized for safety intervention using safety countermeasures that have been identified and presented during our last community workshop. Some improvements, just to give you a flavor of what the improvements may entail. So roadway improvements could include a raised median for access control, road reallocation, or often known as road diets, to reallocate space and even neck down travel lanes and repurpose lanes for bike facilities, for example, and street lighting. There's a suite of intersection improvements as well, including high visibility crosswalks, dedicated left turn lanes, and left turn arrows at signals, bike signals and bike detection, and conversion to roundabout traffic signal, or roundabout control from traffic signals. Signage and markings are also provide a menu of countermeasures that could be implemented, and those are oftentimes easier to implement, more cost-effective solutions, such as additional striping, advanced stop bars in advance of intersections, in advance of crosswalks at intersections, I should say, to provide more of a buffer between vehicles and pedestrians. Pedestrian refuge islands for longer crosswalks to provide a refuge, and 2-stage crossings, bulb outs or curb extensions, and also mid-block crosswalk enhancements with the flashing lights or rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So those are just a few examples of a long list of proven safety countermeasures that are contained in the countermeasure toolbox that's at our and at the city's disposal for safety interventions. All right, as far as the project implementation approach, we certainly acknowledge that all projects can't be implemented all at once. There's funding involved, and a lot of these are complex in nature. The Hindree network does allow the city an opportunity to focus its finite resources where they're expected to have the greatest impact with regards to a reduction of collisions and severity levels. The city will be taking a strategic approach to project implementation to leverage local funds, and that could be through the capital improvement program, and also grant funding sources. There's numerous state and federal grant funding programs that are out there and available. And those provide really good opportunities to fund some of the improvements that are identified. There's as part of the implementation approach, also considering phasing from a standpoint of identifying and categorizing improvements to various buckets, including near-term improvements, which are generally focused on lower cost, easy to implement projects, ones that could be systemic in nature and provide more low-hanging fruit. They oftentimes represent projects too that could be bundled with existing capital programs. An example of that could be striping a bike lane or a buffered bike lane as part of the city's annual pavement rehabilitation program, or applying signing and striping improvements and installation of feedback signs. Midterm improvements are generally more complex in nature, with more safety challenges that require higher level of intervention and associated costs. And some of the longer term improvements, those generally require more significant infrastructure improvements, more complex safety challenges, and may require more robust or multiple funding sources even. An example of a long-term improvement could be a roundabout or a series of roundabouts along a corridor where there's likely some right-of-way acquisition that's going to be required, potentially relocation of underground utilities and modifications to existing drainage systems. So that kind of speaks to the nature and the complexity of some of the improvements that are to be identified. So I know that's a lot of information. Now that we've established priority hydrogen network corridors and presented their approach to implementing projects, we'll be identifying specific improvements along these priority hydrogen network corridors. And that'll be the focus of our next workshop when we get back together in a couple months, will be to present the recommended improvements at these locations. In addition to the infrastructure or engineering projects, another critical part of the Vision Zero initiative and program is to implement safety actions and strategies. And that includes new or updated programs and policies to really take a more holistic approach to enhancing traffic safety. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mike, who's going to walk us through the tail end of the presentation here.
Thank you, Robert. And I was introduced earlier, but I'll take a brief second to introduce myself, Mike Kulte, with Kimley Horn. And Kimley Horn is a national engineering and transportation planning firm with numerous local offices. And I am a local cyclist, pedestrian transit user, happen to be born and raised in Santa Clara, and also an engineering and transportation planning background and road safety professional. So jumping in on this one, as was mentioned and transitioned from Robert, in addition to really on the safer streets and the engineering part of it, we're going to talk about and reinforce that it really takes all of the E's, as Robert mentioned before, as well as really addressing all of the elements of the safe system approach. And those elements are what are around the wheel. So I'm going to talk through those kind of higher level safety actions and strategies for a comprehensive program. So I'm going to categorize those within what are listed there. So Vision Zero Action Plan will include action strategies across the various categories. First, Vision Zero program initiatives, and that's kind of the second bullet here on this screen. And then I'll walk through on the following slide strategies that fall under safer people, safer speeds, safer streets, and then post-crash care and safer vehicles. So jumping on to that first category is Vision Zero program initiatives. Sorry, still on the prior slide, slide 21. It's really that second bullet is the Vision Zero working group and other stakeholders collaboratively support implementation. So the city is committed to continuing the Vision Zero working group to continue that coordination on Vision Zero program and collaboration on implementation efforts and initiatives. In addition, a Vision Zero implementation funding program will be established to fund strategies and secure additional funding to support Vision Zero implementation across these various categories, safe system elements, and the overall program. I'll now move down to those strategies on the next slide under safer people, kind of highlighted there along the safe system wheel. Those strategies are those on safer people that are really influencing behavioral change. So listed here, that includes stakeholder engagement in meetings, traffic education for safe routes to school, so safe routes to school continuous expansion, education campaigns related to speeding, distracted driving, impaired driving, those primary high-risk behaviors. Also traffic education targeted for seniors, city communications training, and on that communication training, it's how to effectively communicate in the media about crashes, crash types, and trends. And so when major crashes happen, there's already pre-planned talking points so that the crash and the issues are framed in the right way. So that's really critical to have right communication around the right communication. So also online safety dashboard and data sharing initiatives, educational campaigns. Also potential along here would be walk audits along the high injury network focused on safer people. Going down to the next slide and safer speeds. This really is focused on speed management and for the safe system approach, that reason is we're not really focused on eliminating all crashes. We're focused on eliminating fatalities and serious injuries, and that speed of the vehicle as well as the mass of the vehicle at a collision really impacts the severity of that crash and leads to whether a particular crash is a fatality or serious injury. So if we want to recognize that crashes may happen but avoid fatalities and serious injuries, we really need those safer speeds and that speed management. Some of those examples would be to implement strategies including lowering of speed limits where permissible by new laws in AB 43, and hopefully in line with making sure that those roads have the engineering countermeasures that support the safer speeds and the lower speed limits, as well as enforcement to support that as well. So speed and driving under the influence enforcement campaign. So that's really targeted enforcement that's been proven to be very effective when you focus on those high risk behaviors like speeding and DUI. Another key aspect of those high visibility enforcement campaigns is including the media and education along that and using that enforcement campaign really to hit the whole community through media. And then going down to collision data focused training for enforcement and public safety professionals. And that's really making sure, and that kind of goes into police academy training as well, and making sure that the enforcement understands how to focus on high risk behaviors, focusing on the speed, and how to integrate the Vision Zero principles into that enforcement and safer speeds. Going down next slide to safer streets. This again would be focused on the high injury network and those priority high injury network corridors, identifying funding for design and construction for high injury network priority corridors. And again, this actually also ties in, this one, safer streets, is where most of those countermeasures we discussed the last outreach would tie in, as well as getting those implemented. That also can be done not just through projects, but expand the design review procedures so that just every project incorporates safer street elements. Also updating and expanding the existing traffic calming program. That's just trying to spread those countermeasures as well. Also targeting those improvements in schools safety zones. Vision Zero design standards, using current best practice to update and enhance design standards for high injury network corridors and citywide, and prioritizing safety for all road users. Design review training and resources to making sure those design reviews are effective, and improving data collection and analysis, including bicycle and pedestrian counts program, so we're able to better understand not only crash frequency, of all users, as well as crash rates, including crash rates for bicyclists and pedestrians. Going on to the last slide of these strategies along the safe system wheel, we are now covering both safer vehicles and post-crash care. Safer vehicles definitely can include those autonomous and connected vehicles, and really evaluating other ways the city can support those within here in Silicon Valley, that those can be happening. They do, and you get past the issues that can be around community support, as well as implementation of autonomous and connected, because even though there can be some issues, those autonomous vehicles in the right situations and right speeds are safer than the general driving public. And then looking at subsidized transit and rideshare program. And then going through post-crash care, traffic signal timing can be done to assist with that recovery. It's key to get a crash victim to the hospital as soon as possible, and the injury response getting to the incident, as well as getting to the trauma center. Tracking and monitoring of response time performance metrics. So those things can be improved, making sure the right equipment gets on site for care. And some other newer aspects that are just evolving that we would be looking at really checking to see if are possible is an initiative called Stop the Bleed, which is really getting tourniquet equipment and training on site to really assist with those severe bleeding that can lead to death, but having the right materials and training so that those severe bleedings are stopped with potentially losing a limb, but not a life. Also, there's an expansion under post-crash care of on-site blood transfusion instead of just IV. That can really be shown to save lives as well. So those are just some additional things that are kind of gaining traction nationally that will be looked at locally. So that summarizes the main strategies we have planned to cover under the safe system approach. And I will now turn it over to Regina for next section.
Thanks, Mike. So first, we're going to show some of the additional upcoming outreach activities that we have planned. So please join us at Bike to Work Day, May 15th at the San Tomas Aquino Creek Trail and Agnew Road. We'll have an activation station there, so stop by. The third community survey will launch at the end of this month. So keep an eye out for that if you're on the Vision Zero mailing list, or receive a direct notification when that's available, or check back at this Vision Zero website. And then we'll have a tentative community workshop planned, our next and final one, on June 30th. So earmark that date, and we'll again share more information coming up soon regarding that. So these are just some of our additional outreach activities. We definitely want everyone to participate throughout the entire process, and looking forward to seeing you at our future engagement activities. Next slide. In addition to in-person opportunities in the survey, the City of Santa Clara has also recently released a distracted driving video that's available on YouTube if you want to take a moment to scan that QR code. This was in part due for Distracted Driving Awareness Month. So take a moment to pull that up on your phone and take a watch, and feel free to share that on your own channels. Really promoting avoiding distracted driving is a key part of the safety culture. So I want to make sure that everyone has that and is aware. And this is just another example of the multiple in-person and online engagement activities that the City of Santa Clara is engaging in. All right, next slide. So finally, before we dive into Q&A, just a reminder, if you were not here when at the beginning of this presentation, when we shared these other ways to get involved, showing this one more time, and we'll have it at the end of the presentation as well. As I mentioned, you can sign up for project updates at the City of Santa Clara's Vision Zero website. You can also reach the project team by sending us an email to the address on the screen, or call and leave a voice message, and someone with the project team will respond back to you. Again, the project website is available at that QR code. And we certainly hope that you'll join us at future community meetings and share this with your friends and neighbors. And also online, we have a FAQ as well as bike and pedestrian safety tips. So lots of good resources online and multiple ways to reach the project team. So we're excited to connect with you. Next slide. All right, so a few final reminders. Again, if you joined after we shared these initial instructions, we're about to turn to the Q&A portion. So if you'd like to change your name before joining, before asking any questions, feel free to rename yourself by adding your first name with your last initial. Next slide. And then to ask a question, we've already been receiving several throughout this presentation, so we'll start with those and keep going until there are no more remaining questions, but feel free to drop your question in the Q&A bubble, and then we will read it aloud and answer live for you, so we will make sure to get to everyone. Thank you so much for everyone who's already been asking questions. We have those queued up and ready to go. Next slide. And then if you would prefer to ask your question out loud, you're certainly welcome to do so. So you would do that by raising your hand. If you're joining via phone, press *9, and then we'll get a notification that your hand is raised. If you're on a desktop, feel free to select raise hand, and we'll see that your hand is raised, and we'll allow you to unmute and ask your question to the project team out loud. So there's multiple ways to ask a question this evening, and we're excited to hear from you and be able to answer and connect. So with that, we'll dive into the Q&A portion, and we already have some queued up. So Nicole, this first one is for you. Can you talk a little bit about how Trump's budget cuts affect implementation?
Yeah, thank you, Regina, and thank you for that question. We are very actively monitoring any changes from the federal level, and really engage with FHWA on how we're moving forward. As far as I know, there's still federal grants that support traffic safety. For example, the one that's currently open, Safe Streets for All grant. We get the grant for this action plan, and there's still grant opportunity from this program to fund any implementation projects. So we're after the plan is adopted, we can then pursue the implementation grant piece from the Safe Streets for All. In addition to that, we're also looking at state and local funding opportunities for traffic safety. So we do have a long list of different grant programs that could support Vision Zero program moving forward. So that would be my answer.
Thank you, Nicole. Next question, what can the community expect to see implemented on a yearly basis? For example, total funding for the expected work and types of projects, such as striping and signage to address all issues everywhere, or controls/redesign at a new intersection, other examples. I think just talking about what's this going to look like going forward on a yearly basis.
Yeah, I can also take that one. So after the plan is adopted, we do plan to provide annual reports to the public on the progress. We do want to make the program, measurable and transparent for the community to understand what the progress has been made. In addition to that, we will also track the number of collisions. The goal is to make it zero at the end. So that's something that the community will see, and those should be posted on the project webpage as public information once we have the plan adopted.
Great, thank you. This next one is for Robert. Can you talk a little bit about what the prioritization process for funding/implementation of projects is? Oh, and Robert, you're on mute, if you can come off.
Sorry about that. Yeah, really good question. So the high energy network and the priority high energy network corridors that have been identified, which again experience a disproportionate number of fatal and severe injury collisions. So that's kind of a baseline understanding of where focused efforts could be made and prioritized. Now, understanding that not all projects could be implemented right away for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. So some projects may cost more, and given the nature of the improvements and implementability. So the framework that's been developed really allows the city to categorize projects into those buckets, the near, mid, long term, based on the relative time frame in which those could be implemented. So the plan is not necessarily prescriptive in nature in terms of implementing projects in a particular order, as there's variables and those continue to evolve as grant funding, whether it's SS4A, Safe Streets and Roads for All, as Nicole had mentioned, or Highway Safety Improvement Program and Active Transportation Program. So various grant opportunities and eligibility for those grant opportunities will differ based on the nature of the improvements and the needs for each of the corridors. So it's hard in terms of prioritization. It's not, again, not prescriptive with a, city is gonna implement project number 1 and then 2 and go in a particular order or sequence. But it allows some flexibility to capitalize on grant funding and corridor needs that continue to evolve, right? This plan is going to be published at the end of the year, but the city is going to continually monitor crash trends and patterns and be able to be responsive to changing conditions. Yeah, so hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you. So this next one is for Nicole. How do you plan to coordinate with Caltrans and the county to get them to prioritize and contribute to improvements along the right of way?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, we do recognize, like we said, El Camino Real is maintained by the state Caltrans, and expressways are belong to the county. For Caltrans, we are actually actively in conversation with Caltrans on bike and ped improvements along El Camino. And as for the county, their staff is part of our Vision Zero working group. So any improvement that we propose, we are coordinating with county staff on a regular basis. And definitely any, for example, signal changes or actual construction work that needs to be done will need their approval and review as well. So we are coordinating with both stakeholders, and we'll keep them informed too.
Cool. All right, next question. Can the lane direction change on Lafayette be removed? It causes many accidents for virtually no benefit, and it would be very easy to remove and have the center lane be turned into a regular left turn lane. So Nicole, I believe that might be one for you.
I did see a few comments and questions related to the Lafayette Street. And thank you all for that comment and questions. As you see from the slide deck, Lafayette is one of the priority corridors that we identify from the part of the HIN. And we did receive similar comments from the online surveys and past events. We are looking into that and can provide more details at next workshop. I believe the lane direction change, those were implemented many years ago, beyond my time at the city, due to, I think, the peak hour traffic pattern is, heavy on one direction during the AM peak, and then switch to the other direction in the PM. So, to implement that change or removing that, we would have to look at what's our current traffic pattern, right? What's the volume of that street now? And before we can actually go and make change. So there will be more study going on, I think, at the next phase. But thank you for that comment, and I do acknowledge that several people commented the same suggestion. So thank you.
Thank you. If there's any other follow-up questions regarding Lafayette that weren't answered by Nicole's response, please feel free to put those back into the Q&A, but I know we've received several questions regarding that topic, so we'll move on to some additional topics for now. This one is from Mike. Could you provide an example of positive and negative, both positive and negative, as to what is the right way to explain an accident?
Yeah, thanks, Regina. I will start right there with that terminology. So part of that communications toolkit would emphasize using the phrase crash instead of accident. In general, with the public, when you use the word accident, the typical response is, oh, that is so unfortunate that accident happened to those people. It was not preventable, and that's so unfortunate that happened to you. When the word crash is used, and collision can work as well, but even more technically crash, there's just this response of the recognition of that there was someone at fault in this crash, and that it was preventable is the key aspect that's different in that terminology. So that's one, not referring to these as accidents, again, often considered unpreventable, which is not the case. So using crash. The other one often can be media can end up being victim blaming. And so For example, if a pedestrian is just really 1 foot out of a crosswalk and wearing black, they can obviously just say, oh, that pedestrian was crossing the street outside the crosswalk and was hit, and not taking into account that the driver was also excessively speeding, potentially distracted, and some of these other emphasis, and really focus on the drivers and the speed and risky behaviors of drivers in particular, but which includes, you still can talk about the responsibility of pedestrians and bicyclists as well, but not just. Oftentimes, media can just mention some issue with the biker pedestrian and ignore all other issues that contributed to that fatality or serious injury. So those are 2 examples, and I'll stop there for now.
Thanks, Mike. Great examples. This next one is more of a comment, but I'll flag it just so everyone can hear, and also if there's any response from the project team. The curved roadway at Winchester Boulevard, that is from Santa Clara to Homestead Road, has caused 1588 Homestead Road to be hit several times. Speed needs to be reduced in this area. Furthermore, the intersection of Homestead Road and Winchester Lincoln often has accidents that I believe could be minimized with turn signals separated from non-turn lights.
Yeah, good question. So curved roadways in general, and that segment in particular, there's several strategies that could be considered. One includes more of a programmatic approach in terms of using AB 43 to look for opportunities to reduce posted speed limits, and that's an effective speed management strategy that's going to be recommended in the Vision Zero plan. There's also some engineering solutions for reducing speeds, and those countermeasures, include advanced curve warning signs, perhaps with flashing beacons to kind of bring greater awareness. We understand that based on the locations we want to consider and be mindful of the fact that there's fronting residential, so not all solutions are going to be effective and could be applied throughout, but just kind of throwing out some ideas. Speed feedback signs are proven to be effective as a safety countermeasure to reduce speeds, and there could be opportunities to consider some reconfiguration of the alignment of the side streets to minimize the curve, or provide some geometric changes to slow speeds and enhance line of sight at that location and other locations with horizontal curvature.
Thanks, Robert. Next question, have the city planners been contacted and asked to join Vision Zero efforts in order to make plans to provide more services and shopping in our neighborhoods in order to reduce the time residents spend walking, cycling, and driving to those destinations, which thereby could reduce the risk of traffic collisions?
Yeah, I can take that one. Yeah, we did invite planner from city's community development department to be on our Vision Zero working group. So we will also relay this comment to the planner and planning team. Thank you for that.
Cool. Next question, will the Vision Zero effort eventually include a more in-depth analysis of severe collisions that occur? What will be the mechanism for such a review? Maybe that's Robert or Nicole to start.
Yeah, I could start that one. So as part of this effort, we analyzed collisions across the 8-year time frame from 2018 to 2023. In that, we did review based on information that was provided, the collision factors, injury severity, and other details. But in terms of the number of collisions, there were thousands of collisions, so we didn't go into detailed or perform a detailed review and look at the police reports for each and every one of them. So it was more of a broad review in identifying priorities and locations where there are safety concerns or trends in collisions and associated collision types. Now, I will say, as part of the plan and specifically the actions and strategies that are being identified, one strategy is performing an annual or even a quarterly review of the collision data, and part of that could be reviewing and performing what we call an after action review. And with that, immediately after there's a fatality or severe injury collision, one strategy could be to convene a subgroup of the working group that includes enforcement to talk about the details of the collision, the contributing factors, and any countermeasures that could be implemented. Some of which could be immediate, near term, depending on the nature of the improvements. And that's an effective strategy to be able to respond to fatal and severe injury collisions that do occur. And in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, there's support for more ongoing review, whether it's annual or quarterly, to review collisions with a subset of the working group.
Thanks, Robert. Next question is related to bike lanes. So Nicole, do you know how many buffered bike lanes, paint only, and protected bike lane, those with physical barriers, are currently installed within city boundaries? And how many more bike lanes / conversions are planned to be installed as part of Vision Zero?
Yeah, so for buffer bike lanes, I don't have the numbers handy because we do have a lot of buffer bike lanes. Protected bike lane, we just installed a little under a mile of class 4 separated bike lane on Mission College Boulevard with flexible delineators. I can touch base and share more numbers, but you can also look up our bike plan, which gives a more detailed count of our bike lane, how many by each type. How many more bike lanes or conversions are planned to be installed as part of Vision Zero? So bike lanes and I believe you're talking about the road diet conversion. Right now, the bike lanes and conversions, they are one of the proposed countermeasure in the toolbox. We do have some bike studies already completed that looked at have council approved road diet, for example, Monroe Street, that's on our HIN, Benton Street as well, which will have a road diet between Lawrence and Santa Moss. So those are the ones that recently just got approved by City Council and will have road diet. And they are part of the Vision Zero high injury network.
Cool. This next question is related to enforcement. So I have seen zero enforcement of late by the police on both bikes and cars behaving badly. What is the plan for improving police presence and enforcement?
Yeah, I will answer that one too. We certainly invited police to be part of our working group. So what we can do is share the feedback that we received tonight with the police department. And they also actively participating in our BPAC meetings. So they provide updates to our BPAC regularly on any traffic collision happened recently. So we can definitely share this with the police officer that we are working with.
Thank you. This is another question related to Lafayette. Saying many people have been complaining about the injury, accidents, and death on Lafayette for many years. Why has nothing been done until now?
I'm gonna check if Steve can respond to that one.
I'll answer that question. So this is Vision Zero. It's a citywide traffic safety plan, specifically related to Lafayette. That's the reference to the reversible lane. We've been, as a individual request, we've been identifying, reviewing, conducting study to address individual complaint regarding to concern along Lafayette. As far as the reversible lane, that's a system of reversible lane signal operating between Lewis and Homestead. Also touching on the comment about removing reversible lane, that's a project in itself. We will need to study the need of the reversible lane, if it's still needed or not. If it's not, maybe then we can remove it as part of this Vision Zero effort. If it's still needed to accommodate movement of traffic, then maybe we look at enhancing the existing reversible lane to address the concern of the community. So that's a project that will come out of the Vision Zero, and it's not exactly part of the plan to do something at this time, but it's one of the activity near term, middle term, or long term project that will be included as part of the Vision Zero plan. I hope that answers this question.
Thank you, Steve. Next question is related to some additional stakeholder engagement. So Nicole, have the businesses in Santa Clara been contacted to discuss their needs? And have they provided free bus passes to their employees? For example, free bus passes could go a long way to reducing collisions from single occupancy cars and will provide opportunities to reallocated road space for other alternatives to cars, such as bicycles and pedestrians, scooters, etc.
Yeah, I think the strategies mentioned in this comment or question are more so about transportation demand management strategies, which I can share this feedback with our planning staff. I think they usually take care of, when a new business come in and new development, they will provide some ways to encourage people to use transit or bike more or walk more. So we can share that feedback and within our working group as well, because they do serve on our Vision Zero working group. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Nicole. And this is a somewhat related question. Can a congestion management fee be charged to commuters to the city similar to the program I think has been adopted in New York City? That money could be used for road safety improvements in the city. So also a little bit of congestion management strategies there as well.
Yeah, I will answer, and Steve, you can chime in. I think this is a bigger topic, looking at congestion management. But our project is focusing on, eliminating fatalities. So really looking at the traffic safety perspective. But yeah, I think the congestion management fee is more towards reducing congestion in the city. And New York City is very different from Santa Clara as well. So there's no one size fits all solution for congestion management. But I acknowledge this comment from the attendee. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Next question. Thank you for explaining the right way to discuss crashes. How does the fact that Santa Clara was designed for vehicles play into the responsibility to re-engineer or modify all right-of-way in the city to improve or enhance alternative modes of transportation, that is basically redesign the city to prioritize people-centric right-of-ways for a more humanistic approach?
Sorry, I'm reading the question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I could start in, Nicole, feel free to chime in. But I think Santa Clara is no different from many other agencies that have aging infrastructure and infrastructure that was installed, many years ago. And with that, the design standards currently are certainly not the same of what it was, when many of the roadways were designed for in a more car-centric environment. So it's something that not only the city of Santa Clara faces, but it's a challenge for all cities to retrofit their roadways to be more accommodating and to enhance safety for bicyclists and pedestrians.
Yeah, sorry, I just sorry, there are a lot of questions and I'm trying to digest. But I would just add that the city does have a complete streets policy. For complete streets, we look at human-centric elements, making every street more bikeable and walkable. So whenever there's an opportunity, for example, when we have annual pavement program, we look at chance to add bike lanes, make it more complete streets for everyone.
Thank you, Robert and Nicole. We next have a comment about Monroe. The road diet is an awful idea for Monroe, moving bicycles to Agate with spurs to Wilcox would be a much better flow. Nicole or Robert, would you like to comment on the Monroe Road diet?
Yeah, I think this one is more of a comment. I would refer back to that Monroe study that we have a project webpage, and feel free to check that out. We do have a very thorough report on the Monroe Street Bike Study, which discuss more on the impacts of road diet on travel time, etc. So I'll just refer it back to that project webpage.
That's cool. Next question, can the city install parking meters for motor vehicles parking spaces in order to create more revenue to fund Vision Zero improvements?
I think that's an idea that we can take back. I think this relates more about curb management, and I guess the attendee wants to help city, brainstorm ideas to fund Vision Zero. So I appreciate that. We can take this back and look into that.
Great, thank you. All right, that is all the questions we've received today. We still have additional time, so if there's any more, don't be shy. Please feel free to put them in the Q&A or raise your hand to come off mute. We're happy to answer additional questions. So we'll give it a few minutes here in case there's any additional items that come up. Another one.
Oh, I think Ken has his hand up.
Oh, yep. Ken, if you want to, I'll unmute you.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. Save time typing. I'm not a great typist. I've got one up there now. Is the city, and I've got three here, I'll just run them off real quick. Is the city supporting the use of autonomous vehicles, and do those vehicles reduce traffic collisions between motorists and bicyclists and pedestrians? And do motor vehicles cause the most crashes? That'd be my, I'll go ahead and list my questions then. The other one is, I understand we're looking at road diets. I'd like the staff to eventually come back with comments on how narrow the lanes can be. So the public, I happen to be on the BPAC, and I brought this up to their attention. I'm also on the Vision Zero group, the not the workshop, the other one, the group. And I don't speak for those groups yet, but we need to find out. So everybody in the city is looking at their streets and has an idea how wide the street has to be to accommodate what they think is the traffic. So the more people we've got looking at that, the better, in my opinion. And the third question I have, it's in regard to the size of our emergency vehicles, particularly the fire trucks. I understand the city of San Francisco has ordered smaller trucks for their city. I think that would be wise if we started looking into that so that we can have narrower streets and more bulb outs and things where the turning radius is reduced due to the shorter truck or the narrower truck. So I'd like to look at that. And the fourth question and last question I understand in Europe, most, and in the United States are similar in that most emergency vehicle call outs are for health emergencies, such as defibrillator operation. I understand Europe puts defibrillators on the walls of buildings at locations rather than have them on the emergency vehicles. The response time goes way down. And I saw this online, some pictures of them. It looks like they have instructions so that anyone can use a defibrillator. So I'm wondering if we're looking at that, I think that would free up our streets, make them safer. Okay, so I have those four questions.
Thank you, Ken. So let's start with the first one, going back to the question regarding if the city is supporting the use of autonomous vehicles and if those vehicles reduce traffic collisions between motorists, vehicles, and bicyclists and pedestrians. So Nicole, do you want to speak a little bit to the autonomous vehicle portion of that?
Yeah, as a city staff, I do keep track of the technology out there, and autonomous vehicle is definitely, you know, an emerging technology of transportation. As far as I know, and the stats shown by those companies, they show a reduction in traffic collisions, and they do help, you know, achieving Vision Zero. So we could look into that. And I think it's more about how we regulate the use of those vehicles in the city. So it's a broader discussion that we need to, you know, take it back and look at more and do more research and see how other cities are doing. For example, San Francisco, as you mentioned, do motor vehicles cause most crashes? I believe in our data, yes, they were, Robert, if I don't have the numbers handy, but I think they caused the majority of the crashes, right? Vehicle only.
Correct. Correct. I
Yeah,
don't have the numbers handy, but that is the largest proportion
yeah.
of collisions.
And I can reinforce, Nicole, just one aspect of the autonomous vehicles and even relationship to collisions between motorists and bikes and pedestrians. The autonomous vehicles have that speed management component where they're not excessively speeding like many motorists are. And they therefore, even if there is a crash, and there can be, especially if biker kind of jets out in those situations. It's not can't totally eliminate at this time, but those sensors are even improving, really predicting where an adjacent biker ped is going and noticing that conflict in advance. But even if it does happen, even with today's technology, that speed is likely going to be much less than a typical motor vehicle with a human driver, and therefore lower the severity of that crash in the majority of those situations.
Few comments and recommendations of things to look into, including lane widths, the size of emergency vehicles, as well as defibrillators at buildings rather than just on emergency response vehicles. So thank you for sharing those recommendations as well. Nicole, I'm not sure if there's any additional of those comments that you would like to comment on as well.
Yeah, I think Ken also asked the emergency vehicles, and I think that's more of a operation standpoint from the fire department, so I cannot comment too much on that, but we can certainly share that suggestion with the fire department staff, who is also in our working group, so we can talk more offline.
Thanks so much. And did that answer all your questions?
Let's see. Yeah, if you can still hear me, the lane width. Yeah, the lane widths, I think you ought to address that, because that seems like the most promising thing we can do in the city is to reduce the lane widths. There's some discussion about whether that slows vehicles down, but it certainly provides more space for and if you live in the city, you'll see a lot. It provides more space for all the things I'm starting to see. I've lived in the city for 40 years. And we're seeing a lot of electric vehicles, the small scooters, electric bikes. We're seeing a lot of these alternatives to the car. This is wonderful. But I think they need the space. The easiest thing to do is paint. We can stripe the streets differently. I know there's an effort to do that, but we need to be really transparent to the public and get them thinking about where we can do these reduction in lane widths. It just seems like it's systemic across the entire city. We can't share these lanes. This idea about sharing the lane. In fact, I asked the question of our consultants here about how wide a traffic lane has to be for a cyclist to stay safe, meaning riding off to the right side of the lane. And the number that I came up with independently, and I agree with the consultants here, is that it's 14 feet. Anything under 14 feet, that cyclist, according to our consultants here, and my recommendation, you ride in the middle of the lane. Not something I normally do, but I'm starting to do it. And I find that the cars do respond. They go into a farther, a left turning or left lane to pass me, or they slow down. So we need to get some of these ideas circulating in the general population so we can start taking a look at these roads. Can't leave it all with the traffic engineers. Anyway, that's a comment, and maybe the staff can respond to it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. In terms of the lane width, I think a lot of the cases we have to look at what vehicles are driving through. In discussion with VTA, if there's transit, if there's bus stop along the route, we have to give them 11 feet wide for their bus vehicles, and really depend on the location and context and traffic volume. And if it's a truck route, then we may need to provide a bigger width of the lane for trucks.
I can follow up there just real quick and reinforce that. It was at the last community meeting. It was discussion with me, and it is my opinion as a cyclist and as a road safety professional that and through prior research, really a number of years ago, that 14 feet is enough generally for in most situations for a vehicle and bicyclist to ride side by side, and that being a pavement. But once you get less than that, it's actually, as a bicyclist, it is better to be in the lane if you don't have a separate facility that can be ridden, and then as well maybe a motorist would honk at you, or even, but they're going to see you and not hit you. What happens in those narrower lanes, all of a sudden they can get up beside you before they realize that there is not enough space to go side by side, and it can be confusing to the driver. But again, every situation is unique, and you need to look at the vehicles. But as a generalization, that is often the case, that it is just better to be in the lane on those lanes narrower. And I will say sometimes a 12-foot lane can lead to confusion of the motorists, because they don't realize as they're approaching, and also the bicyclist often doesn't realize that, and they'll stay to the far right, and they'll think there's enough space to pass, and then get alongside. So that's some of the background that just is a consideration on lane widths.
We do have a comment in the chat saying great idea about the lane width reduction, so you have a +1 to that. Another question is, what percentage of streets are 11 feet or less within the city of Santa Clara? And I'm not sure we have those numbers, but Nicole, I'll hand it to you if there's any insight onto that.
No, I don't have the answer handy. But if you like, we can touch base offline. Yeah, I just don't have that calculation.
We will be
At this
sharing
point.
contact information again for this project at the conclusion of this Q&A portion. So if you have any questions or follow-ups, feel free to email directly regarding that. And then another question from Ken: how about eliminating some parking on the street in order to allow installation of bike lanes? And I know there's several bike studies going on, so maybe that's a different topic for this, but I'll hand it over to the project team to answer that as well.
Sorry, this is a question about eliminating parking.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I think as a city, when we look at the bike studies, we look at different options first, and we want to engage the community before we implement any solution. And sometimes eliminating parking on the street can, trigger concerns from the community. And there might be a need in that neighborhood for parking. So we, as a team, we cannot just go out and right away take away their parking on street in order to before we install a bike lane. So we always make sure we engage the community and have them in the conversation before the council makes a decision. So there needs to be a study done for that.
Thanks, Paul. There is a question that says San Francisco, Oakland, and other cities have tons of 12-foot or less for width for lanes. Why would it be a challenge to do that here in Santa Clara?
I think for most of our city streets, they are 12 feet or less. I think you only see the wider lanes usually on expressways and the state highways. So, and those are not designed or maintained by the city, so we don't have control. But I think for most of city streets, usually they are 10 to 12 feet wide. So hopefully that answers your question.
Our questions are slowing down in the chat. Let's go ahead and pull up the slide with the additional contact information for any further follow-up or discussion. And one more comment here. Regardless of control, the city should be working with the county and state to get them to reduce width of streets to improve safety, please. Thank you. We've noted that comment and we'll make sure that's recorded for this evening. All right, so we do appreciate everyone's questions and comments tonight. Know that we will be sharing the recording of this presentation and a summary of the key themes that we heard. Again, if you have any further questions or follow-up, you're welcome to email the project team at the address listed on the screen, visit the project website, or leave a voicemail at 408-915-6566. And then those are all great ways that you can reach the project team for further dialogue. We hope you'll get involved with us at our future engagement events and take our future surveys and attend workshops. So there's more opportunities to continue being involved. And we're so grateful for everyone's time this night. So with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude this evening's workshop. So thank you, everyone. Have a good evening and stay safe.